welcome to Plus One Forward, the podcast powered by the Apocalypse, where we talk about tabletop role-playing games using or inspired by the Apocalypse engine. I'm your MC, Rach.
And I'm your co-MC, Rich. Tonight, we're joined by our guest, Micaiah Dodge. Hey, Micaiah, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
We are excited to have you on. Let's kick this off, Micaiah. I am curious, how long have you been playing PBTA games, and what was your gateway?
So about 5 years. My first gateway game I'm going to discuss was not a PBTA game, but it was the first one that showed me that there was light beyond D&D, and it was Marvel Heroic role-playing. Yeah. My friend Lonnie actually told me about it, and we played a few games, and I could not even believe that there could be a game that was focused on the story instead of the stupid dice rolls. I mean, there's dice pools and stuff like that, but it's so much more narrative, and it blew my mind. That was my first blown mind. So that was Marvel Heroic.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was going to say about dice rolling because that's like got a whole mini game involving dice rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the difference is, and this is the same with PBTA, the difference is with Marvel Heroic, you say what you're going to do, and that's the narrative, and then you build your dice pool. So it's not like, well, I'm going to use this move on my sheet here and roll a D20.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I really liked most about, Marvel Heroic was the narrative aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah. And after Marvel Heroic, the first Powered by the Apocalypse game I played was Dungeon World. And that seems to be a pretty common theme. I'm listening to episodes and things. I think a lot of people started with Dungeon World.
Yeah.
You rocked a lot of people's worlds.
Absolutely. You want to talk about mind blown. That was amazing to me. Every aspect that you could create a character in 5 or 10 minutes and be playing in 30 minutes, that I didn't have to read cover to cover the entire rule book, nor did I have to reference charts and go back to page 13 and forward to page 56. It was amazing. I mean, that was just the beginning. But yeah, Dungeon World was my first Powered by the Apocalypse experience, and I've been a junkie ever since.
Let's jump on over here and read a sitch.
Great.
Read a sitch.
In Read a Sitch, our guest talks about a particular aspect of play, hopefully with PBTA. It could be a journal of play. It could be highlighting an aspect of playing RPGs that they are passionate about. Micaiah, what is it that you'd like to talk about and help us to read a sitch about today?
Well, at first when I considered this, I was thinking, oh my gosh, all these people have these great specific mechanics that they like and so specific rules and moves, and I can't think of anything. But then I just took a step back. One of the things I love about any group activity, and I come from a theater and music background, so you experience it when you're like singing, when you're playing music with other people, when you're on stage. Everybody has experiences at some time. You don't have to be in theater. You could be singing around a campfire. There's this energy, and it's more than just the camaraderie. There's this sort of vibe that you get with other people, and it's like a genuine connection that you're with these people and only doing this thing right now. That happens for me when I'm playing a good role-playing game as well. I was playing The Sword, The Crown, and The Unspeakable Power, well, months ago, because you know how it is. You can't get a game going for the life of you once you start it. But we were having a fantastic time, and I and another player were role-playing a situation, and about 20 minutes go by, and maybe it wasn't 20 minutes, but we were going for a while, and the GM stepped in and said, "So, are you trying to do this move?" And I realized for a minute, I wasn't even aware there was a mechanical system for this. We were just role-playing. And the cool thing was, we were so involved in the story that we didn't even care. We didn't even care that whatever I was trying to influence or he was trying to do this or whatever. And in Powered by the Apocalypse, it seems to happen a lot more than other games. To give you a contrary example, this last weekend I played Serenity, the RPG. I'm a huge Firefly fan. And every time I step outside the PBTA circle, I get reminded why I stay in the circle. Because let me tell you, this is not to bash the GM. The GMing is hard, period. Especially if you come from the old ways. And the poor guy, every time we did something, rather than thinking about the role-playing implications, he would immediately go, okay, well, let's see, you need this die and this die. Okay, then I'm going to roll this and this and this. And it became a game about rolling. And, so I tried to intimidate one person and he had to make 4 separate rolls for the people. And instead of having a narrative effect, it was a mechanic. Okay, he's going to skip his turn. He's going to skip his turn. And I realized during that what it was really doing was killing our connection. There was no connection between the players and the GM. And so we couldn't really tell a story. All we could do is witness a story and every now and then make choices. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure,
Yeah, experience the world kind of play.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, I think it comes back to that notion in PBTA of play to find out what happens, because you're not, hopefully in an ideal situation, you're not going to sit down at a table where the GM has scripted out a whole adventure for your characters to wander through. They're going to have some semblance of an idea of what's going on, but then it's up to everyone else at the table to collaboratively make something happen that fulfills everyone.
Absolutely. And that's what I love about Powered by the Apocalypse. And the other thing that it does that I've noticed is the moves themselves, they have triggers of narrative. And so what that means is that instead of, well, I'm going to pick this move and roll my dice, it's, I'm going to do this thing. And then when it says on the sheet, it says, when you do this thing, then roll these dice. I love that because for me, that's just a subtle but a very important perspective shift, because instead of shifting from what are the things that I can do and what can I roll for, instead I think, what do I actually want to do? And then how do I translate that into the system?
In Apocalypse World, the way that I interpreted the first, the original text, is the players are supposed to just play, right? They're not even supposed to call out moves. The MC keeps those triggers in mind and calls them out. I really enjoyed that style of play. And as people get more experience with a particular game, they're going to angle their role play to probably trigger a move if they're really excited about it. But I do love those moments where it just falls away. And no, I'm not saying this was a great game session, nobody touched the dice. That's not.
Right.
That's not a great game session in Powered by the Apocalypse play from my perspective. It's great when there are strings of just characters interacting with each other, with the world, and then occasionally we hit against the rules and that changes the fiction, or it presents you with an unexpected opportunity or puts you at risk, and then you can't just storytell it out. The dice have made a declaration that nobody wanted.
Right. Absolutely.
To go back to your earlier example, I'm thinking of the idea of the GM who's sitting there, doesn't appear to be listening in on the whole in-character conversation, but definitely is, and steps in with the, sounds like this type of move is being triggered right now, so who's going to roll to counterbalance the players that might be thinking a little bit more moves forward?
Sure.
And speaking MC-wise, this was something I didn't pick up for the first couple years of MCing PBTA games, but there is that the MC makes a move when the players look at them expectantly. You can let a scene play out, and if nobody is engaging the actual moves, but then there's a pause, boom, you can do a move. Boom, do a move. Like, just move. You don't even have to roll dice. Just do the thing. It's exciting.
Yep.
Announce off-screen badness.
That's right.
Love that one. Micaiah, let's jump back to the groove, because I really want to key in on that. That was the thing that you brought to the table here, as it were. Is that just a thing that happens? Can you manufacture that? Like, it's awesome to think, oh, the groove is nice when the groove happens, but no one can make the groove. Or can you?
From a music perspective or acting or whatever, I know the groove happens then when you are not focused in your analytical mind. You're not focused on the rules per se. You're not focused on the numbers. You are being creative. And when you're creative together, when you're really listening to the other players and you're really combining your creativity, I think that's when the groove happens. Let's say when you're on stage, when you have all your lines memorized, you know exactly what you do, you can get into the groove then because you're not thinking about your lines. Everything is nice and clean and you just flow straight through. And I think gaming-wise, it's the same thing. I think the less you have to think about the limitations, what you can or can't do, or how you can and can't do it, the less times you have to do that, the more you can get into the groove, the more you can engage that creative side as opposed to the analytical side, then you can really start creating together.
It almost sounds like you're saying if people are staring at their playbook, looking for the next move, that might be antithetical to finding the groove?
Absolutely. When you're looking at your moves and you're trying to think, when can I use this thing next? It really doesn't help you engage in the story. And that's another thing that I love about PBTA is that you only have a few moves. I mean, the basic moves are all outgrowths of what you can do in every situation, and they're basic. You do something and that translates to a move. But even your custom moves that are on your playbook, you only have a couple. So I think that eliminates a lot of the analysis paralysis where, what should I do? Which feat should I use? Which skill should I use? What weapon, So yeah, absolutely. When you can get out of your character sheet and into the creativity, I think that's when it really flows together.
Well, thank you, Micaiah. This was a nice conversation about finding the groove, and it really is a fun part of RPGs. Let's jump on over here and open our brain to some thrilling adventures, okay?
All right.
Open your brain.
In Open Your Brain, our guests discuss an apocalypse engine game that they've worked on. So you're going to talk to us about thrilling adventures, correct?
That's correct.
So what's the setting? What is Thrilling Adventures about?
So every time I sat down to watch an Indiana Jones movie, it was so action oriented. It was so fun. All the characters were just so alive. I wanted to play in that setting. So this setting is set in the pulp adventure genre. There are a lot of other movies and books and comics and everything and pulp is a huge genre, right? But this particular game is set so that you can put yourself into the action of a pulp adventure, very much in the style of Indiana Jones.
If I remember correctly from reading the demo copy we got, it's specifically the 1930s and the 1920s, correct?
That's right. So it's the 20s and 30s. It's sort of that flapper era. You've got prohibition. You've got a depression coming, but until then, everything is great. You've got a lot of wartime stuff brewing. Everyone knows it, but not really. And so there's a lot of great tension globally, as well as a lot of celebration and a lot of money and travel here and there. So yeah, it's generally set in the 20s and 30s.
If I'm coming into Thrilling Adventures, should I say it more excitedly? Because it's got an exclamation point, right?
Yeah.
Officially has an exclamation point?
Yeah, you have to put on your transcontinental accent. Thrilling Adventures!
Please don't yell it on the podcast. You'll scare off everyone using headphones.
Someone coming to Thrilling Adventures? What mechanics are different in this game versus Apocalypse World?
Well, see? Anyway, perfect. That was just beautiful. I realized as I was thinking about this, there are a lot of them. So I hope I don't overextend, but I'll just talk about some of them. So one of the things I really like, and to be fair, I was inspired by Escape from Dino Island.
Oh, yeah.
There's a mechanic of cutscenes in this. And I really love the idea of characters becoming more than just their signature moves or just the damage they do or whatever. And I really love that you could actually include a mechanic in a game that will allow you to tell a slice from this character's life that's not related to the present, that gives you insight. So cutscenes are mechanics where either a move will tell you to narrate a cutscene or the director will tell you, with just the GM, but the director will tell you to narrate a cutscene. And each playbook has their own unique cutscenes related to them. Some of them are fun and funny, and some of them are really deep and asking the existential questions. What I like about that is it gives a chance for a player to really dig into their character and create some drama that wouldn't be there in the current situation. So there's cutscenes. One thing I really like is each character in this game has a showstopper move. Yeah, if you look at a lot of pulp adventure, there's a moment during the movie when the main character has this heroic, dramatic, cinematic move that they make, and it changes the course of a really bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, if each character could have their own signature showstopper move where maybe it clears out all the mooks in the scene or it provides a dazzling exit, then they could be the hero for that movie, or at least for that moment in time.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned movie. Does a movie cover a story, a single session? What is a movie?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So this game takes place in episodes and movies. So your movie is that's another word for campaign, essentially, right? But each episode, because pulp adventure is all episodic, though it can have an overarching plot, each episode is the session of play, whether it's 3 hours or a 5 hour, whatever. It's a start to finish session, and it itself has its own plot arc. However, the movie would be 2, 3, several sessions stuck together, and it has a larger plot arc. So it's the campaign.
Okay.
There's a new thing I added in called Party Harm. And in this, I wanted the party to be able to experience things together and not just as their individual units. So your party can actually take harm. And that can represent physical harm. If you all fall out of a plane, you may take party harm as opposed to individual. Or it could be emotional. Maybe you're getting tired of being together, just not gelling, and it represents when a party is falling apart. Now, in another RPG system that's not PBTA, I would be really terrified of that. You never want the party to fall apart. But in PBTA, it's all about failing forward. So when the party hits that moment and they just can't take anymore, that's when they transform. And it might be a fight. It might be they get dragged off to separate cells or whatever, but they will come back together. So the party harm is a way of sort of tracking the party's health, whether it's physical, emotional, or even in a camaraderie kind of sense. So that's a cool thing.
Is it a separate harm track? Like if the party takes harm, does that flow through to each of the characters individually or just stay on a party collective unit?
So the party harm is its own track, and it doesn't flow through to other characters, but it's part of, I think, maybe my favorite mechanic of this game, the adventure diary. It looks like a couple pages of a diary, and it starts with the name of the episode. And what you do is there are a few blanks, and the players and the director start during setup, session 0, by choosing words from a word bank. So, for example, I chose these words from the word bank. The game that we are going to play is Theft of the Jade Bat, a tale of villainy and betrayal. And so it does a couple of things because it lets the characters, the players decide what sort of tone they want. That doesn't sound too scary or whatever, but there are darker words in there. It also gives the director something to play with. If I know that the players have chosen these elements and I go, okay, well, these elements are already written for me. I know I can put these in, and they'll go, oh, it's the Jade Bat. But it also helps me as a GM, as a director, stay focused on what the main goal is. So that's the first part. But then it also has a group dynamic to help the group decide how it got together. And the reason that came into being was I realized, let's say you've got a treasure hunter and a movie star and a kid in the jungles of South America and a rainforest, right? And I'm thinking, how did these 3 people get here? What possibly put them together? So the next part of that is it says we were united in an overwhelming need to, and then the party chooses one to escape, to right a wrong, to whatever. And it sort of gives another reason for them to be together.
Nice.
The adventure diary is also where party harm takes place. I'm excited by it because I think it sort of sets the tone for the game from the very beginning.
Cool.
Yeah. That's it as far as mechanics. The only thing I'd say non-mechanic wise is whereas something like Apocalypse World is totally, totally okay with you dying, and that's fine. Dying can be fine. This game is more about your heroic acts. So you don't die in this game. You become incapacitated, and this is not the first game to do that. It's not revolutionary. But what I tried to do with this game was make it as heroic as possible. So if you weren't afraid to die, if you could undertake those actions that may otherwise kill you, but in this system wouldn't be a big deal, then I thought that was a real bonus to telling these super heroic pulp adventure stories. So that's the other thing I really like that's different than Apocalypse World. It's not about the death and darkness. It's about the succeeding, and it's about the adventure and the excitement.
What's your favorite move in Thrilling Adventures and why?
Okay, my favorite move, and it's just one move in the Treasure Hunter playbook, but it is your shoes untied. And the idea was, I was trying to put together what would Harrison Ford do, and it perfectly exemplifies that character because it says, A, this guy is wily, crafty. B, he has a sense of humor. C, he's action-oriented, and a lot of the moves are like that. They're sort of not necessarily tongue-in-cheek, but they're all descriptive in the way that makes you feel the character. And to me, that's so important because I don't even care what the mechanics are. If the move says your shoe's untied, I'm going to use that move because it's fun. And that is my favorite move because it sort of is representative of a lot of the feeling of this game.
Well, I'm certainly excited to try out a more action-packed and exciting, adventure-focused, powered by the apocalypse game. How about you, Rich?
It sounds good. I think we should go act under fire over there and do it.
I'm totally excited. Let's do this.
It is time to act under fire.
So you are two adventurers who met. Well, let's see. We've got, why don't you introduce your characters real quick?
You bet. I am playing Plussy. The playbook for Plussy is the Schmo. So I may not have a fancy degree or even a diploma. I'm a graduate summa cum laude of the School of Hard Knocks. So that is the Schmo bit, and I love it.
Nice.
I'll just adopt that 100%.
Well done. And Rach?
I'm going to be playing Curtis today as the inventor. Archimedes said, "Give me a liver long enough and I will move the world. But give me a diesel engine and a toolkit and I will accomplish it in half the time."
Nice. There you go. So an inventor and a schmo. I don't know how you guys met, but it had to be spectacular and fun.
Wanted ad.
That's it. So you guys have been doing odd jobs together. You found that you're good at exploring and adventuring and finding things. And you were hired locally for this most recent caper that you're on. There's a few households on the outskirts of Patterson, Louisiana. Okay. And so this is deep in the heart of the bayou. And so there's a lot of old traditions there and stuff. And they had an artifact stolen from them. It's very important to them, and it's a jade bat. In your research, you've discovered that superstition says the artifact has necromantic powers. Now, of course, as the inventor, I imagine you, Curtis, probably just laugh it off, and, Schmo is probably no big deal to you. But the other interesting thing is that bodies have recently been disappearing from the morgue in Patterson. And in local areas around this area. So, that's just a lot of interesting things that are happening. So anyway, these people want this artifact back. It's precious to them, and you decided that you're going to go after it. So you started doing some investigation, and the sheriff, Boudreaux is his name, because we're in Louisiana. Sheriff Boudreaux laughed it off and said, "Oh, it's probably a prank, a bunch of kids playing jokes or people just messing around. I wouldn't worry about it. We'll take care of it." So you decided to investigate around the town. You found one person, and I'll open up to you guys. Who do you suppose helped you with the tip and knew where the thieves usually hang out?
It's got to be a plucky kid of some kind. That's in genre, right?
Absolutely. Okay, so a plucky kid caught your eye at the bar and said, "Hey, I know where they are." And he gave you some directions. He said, "It's across the bayou. It's at this place where these trees do this certain thing, and we won't go into it for time's sake, but you can't miss it." And so, I don't know, you tipped the kid or something.
Of course.
I give him a soda.
Yeah, there you go. You gave him a soda. Exactly. So you're thinking about this and you're trying to figure out, what this artifact is, who has it, as you're sort of trying to get to the place. When you're snapped out of your reverie by a couple of gunshots behind you, pew, pew, and you snap back, you remember that you're on an airboat. So it's those fan boats in Louisiana that sort of cruise the bayou, right? Giant fan. Who's driving? Who's piloting?
It's got to be me. I figured it out. It's got a couple of levers, and I can make it work.
No big deal.
He justified it.
That's right. That's right. So we've got Plussy piloting, and Curtis, you look behind you and see there's 3 other fan boats behind you coming up fast. Somebody must have figured out that you were going to where you're going. So you've got these fan boats, and you felt the bullets whiz by your ear. Pew, pew. What do you guys do?
Curtis, get down.
Curtis is just really curious about the engineering of these fan boats and how we could build this fan boat we have to be superior. I mean, they are, catching ground on us, and it right now might be a really appropriate time for an experiment, because I have a wrist-fired dart contraption I've built, and I'm going to see if I can ping out one of their fans.
Beautiful. I love that. All right. So I believe it sounds like you are triggering a move.
Yes, I'm trying to trigger a move on the Inventor Playbook called a calculated shot.
Ah, nice. Go ahead and roll when you try to make a calculated shot, but go ahead.
So it wasn't quite calculated enough, because that's sure a 6.
Oh, that's...
Is there help? Can I help?
Well, you see just too late that Curtis goes to fire this dart, and you know what? On a 6, you know what has to happen. First, you take an experience, but you actually fire the dart dead into the gas tank. Oh, and this fan boat is slowing down in pulp action timeline. It's so nice work. But the other fan boats, the other airboats are coming up fast now. You notice a guy on one of the boats there. So each boat has a pilot and then maybe 1 or 2 guys. And, there might be a couple of machine pistols and maybe some revolvers or something. But one guy has a big machete, and he's standing on the prow of his boat and just leering at you. He's got a scar running from his right temple down through his eye and into his cheek. He's got a eye patch, greasy hair. He's about maybe 6'7" and fully muscled, and he looks like a scary dude. And he's the one that is converging quickest on you. So what do? You got a dead boat in the water, and this guy coming up. What are you going to do?
Curtis, maybe you should work on your aim right now. Can you get that engine going? I'm going to see if I can buy some time.
Yeah, go be a distraction.
Awesome. Let's deal with the distraction first. He will be close enough to, it looks like he may want to jump on the boat, but do you want to do something first? What do you want to do, Plussy?
Oh, what I want to do is reach over and grab my trusty Louisville Slugger. And I'm going to go over there, and if he comes jumping over here, I'm going to see if I can knock a home. You know what I'm saying?
Nice. Well, he does. He's not afraid of your bat. The boat zooms up. He's going to jump onto the boat, and you can take a swing at him. But first, let me just go back to the engine fixing Curtis. And what are you doing, Curtis?
I'm going to attempt to trigger another move. So I'm going to, look at what I did to the engine. This is all part of the great experiment, I swear. What are my motivations? And I'm going to attempt to repair this device using my inventor's toolkit I have on hand.
Okay.
So I think that's going to be another savvy roll, and maybe my dice won't hate me this time.
Good luck. You can do it.
Well, that's a little bit better. That's a 7. Okay, so that's when you attempt to repair a modern device with complex mechanical parts. On a 7, you succeed, but you must choose a malfunction from the list below, which is you take 2 harm as the device discharges.
That's nasty.
Malfunction inflicts 1 party harm from a large discharge.
Yikes.
A loud noise from the device or a silent alarm triggers. I think it is thematically on point that we take some harm. Rich, do we want to experience party harm or
party harm?
All right. So you go to fix it, and it sputters to life, but at this point, the gasoline has leaked all over the boat. And as you do, you get this big explosion, no more eyebrows, and You take a point of party harm. And so party harm in this case isn't necessarily that you guys both take harm. It represents the solidarity and health of the party. So at this point, it could be that maybe Plussie's pissed off that, how could you do this? Or maybe you guys are just beaten down by the flames. So you're not on fire, but there was an explosion. The engine sputters to life. And in the meantime, we've got Jack Croc-Eater Depew jumping on the fan boat as Curtis is trying to repair it. And you said you were going to take a swing. Let's swing for the rafters. You're going to inflict some harm?
I'm going to let him have it. So you're done talking. You need to cause some pain. Roll plus tough. My tough
Perfect.
is +2.
Oh, my God.
Go well. And that is a 7.
7, okay. And so tell me, you inflict the harm, and what else happens?
So I get to choose one. They inflict harm on you. They put you in a bad spot. They create an opening to flee.
Oh, okay.
Do I want to give them an opening to flee when I don't want them on the boat in the first place? I'll just take some harm. I'll take some harm. That sounds fun.
All right. So let's say you go to swing at him and you connect solidly. However, the explosion to your back makes you flinch for a second, and he manages to bring up his machete and clock you on the head. And not with the sharp end. That would end differently, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So you go ahead and take a harm. You notice there's less harm in this game because it's more dangerous. It's more exciting. So you take 2 more harm and you're incapacitated.
Oh my, that is scary.
All right, so he has now gained your boat. The boat is moving again. You see, you're cruising in the swamp. It's got all the bracken and bramble. It's got, logs and just brackish water. You definitely see a bunch of prehistoric-looking creatures whose eyes are way too far apart. And, there's some poisonous snakes and everything. Now, I'm going to say that one of the other boats pulls up alongside of you, just manages to get you. They're going to fire off a round of machine pistol. So, Rach, I'm going to let you decide what are you doing against the barrage of machine pistol fire?
Oh, is Curtis driving the boat now because you fixed the engine?
I think Curtis was going to make an attempt to drive the boat. I almost see him taking kind of in a shielding self-defensive position behind the boat's blades. Did not sign up for this. I imagine a future where we're running across crocodiles to get out of here.
Gotcha.
Are they alligators here? I don't remember that part of biology class very well.
I think the answer is yes to both. So, all right. So Curtis is kind of hanging out, trying to avoid the bullets by being behind the blades of the fan boat. All right. Well, why don't you act under pressure and see if you can avoid those.
Excellent. What stat is that?
That's going to be quick. And I actually pulled up the playbook. Hey, what a great idea.
Oh, Jesus Christ, these dice. So that's 3.
3. Oh, my God.
The answer is no.
So here's the thing. The easy thing would be for you to take harm, but I don't think that happens. I think there's something more, I think far worse than harm. I think what happens is the bullets come spraying across and you get nervous and you take a bad step and you end up falling off the boat.
Oh!
Now, I'm going to say you managed to grab on with one hand, but now you get a really good close-up view of the creatures that are in the water with you. Were you driving, Curtis, or is Plussie driving?
So Plussie started driving, then stopped to attack our pursuers, and then Curtis tried to get to the driver's seat and then went overboard.
Okay, so I think you've got an out-of-control boat, which, generally is going to go forward, right? But this boat is zooming across the bayou full speed, and there's no one at the controls because, Plussie, you're sort of engaged in hand-to-hand combat.
That's true.
And we've got Curtis hanging on by a thread. What is Curtis shouting as that's happening?
As I hold on by a thread, what am I shouting? I think he's just shouting, if you can knock him off, we'll be able to get the boat under control again. Just give me 2 more minutes. It'll be okay, I swear.
Yeah, I'm trying, okay?
Let's see, you're on this out-of-control fan boat. Maybe parts of it are on fire. Plussie and... what was his name?
Croc-Eater.
Croc-Eater Depew are grappling. Curtis, you're hanging on the side. And somehow, this reminds you of something that happened a while ago, which is strange because you've never been in the bayou clinging to an airboat. But But something in your past reminds you. Would you narrate a cutscene for me from your sheet? What reminded you? And tell me a little bit about that.
At this point, we have a cutscene, a flashback to when Curtis was back in university and going out on field projects, and he was working at a zoo. And there is a point where, due to a weird set of happenstances, he has fallen into an alligator pit before. Oh, God, this is not the first time.
Yikes.
And then realized, there is a way that you can safely, in air quotes, climb on top of these gators as a way to leverage yourself up and over to this flashback up to the edge of the pit to make a break and escape from the animal containment area. And perhaps maybe this is a time where he could figure out, hopefully this is a log, but if it's not, I know the right amount of force where I could climb up and over and use that to haul myself back on the boat, and maybe we can team up with Plessy and shove this dude over the edge and then fly off into the sunset.
Great. I love that. I love the incorporation with the Crocs. Okay.
Crocs have to happen, man.
Let's say, you know what? I'm just going to give this to you. Let's say as you're going along, you remember that flashback. Oh, I can use the Crocs. And the next Croc you see, rather than shying away, you manage to step on its snout just as it opens, and you propel yourself up into the boat. You're just behind Croc Eater Dupoo. So what are you going to do, Plessy? Your pal has just gotten back into the boat, is now flanking Dupoo. Dupoo is unaware of it.
I'm going to use a showstopper to see if we can bring this to a Titanic close. So I have a showstopper move, kick-ass chew bubblegum. And the odds are against you when there's nowhere to run and hiding is for wimps. Why, that's when you're at your very best. Once per movie, when it seems like there's no way out but forward, come up with a cheesy one-liner. I think the one-liner that Plessy gives is with the Crocs. Evidently, there's like a swarm of them because Curtis was like leapfrogging them. He says, Dupoo, I think it's time for you to go have some din-din. Boom! And he's going to try to shove him off, and I get to roll plus tough. The move succeeds on any roll, but on a 7 to 9, the director will give me a complication. So here we go.
Wonderful.
Oh, that's a little bit better. 8 plus 2 makes it a 10.
Hey, all right. So you managed to shove him off. He gets this look of surprise because no one shoves Dupoo off an airboat. And luckily, Curtis is there and he sees you go for it, stretches out a leg, and boom, Dupoo falls over the leg and into the water with a horrible gurgling snap. You know that that's the end of Croc Eater Dupoo, who has now become the E10. So,
Croc Eater Dupoo.
We're going to fast forward real quick out of this fan boat, this airboat scene. You're at the hideout of the bad guys. You have found a secret trapdoor under the floorboards. You found an ancient temple that leads down into the earth and followed chanting to this circular room where there are robed figures chanting. And sure enough, the central robed figure in red has the jade bat, is wearing it. They're chanting some ancient language. You go to step into the room and they stop, and the red figure looks up at you and he pulls back his hood, and it's the Sheriff Boudreaux from the town. He says, "Now, I told y'all not to mind your business round here, but look at you, you've gone and made a mess of trouble. Well, you know what's going to happen now. Boys, get 'em."
That's awesome. Oh my goodness. What a terribly amazing cliffhanger. Will Plessy and Curtis survive the theft of the jade bat? I certainly hope so.
Well, I don't know if I have any experience bringing across jade artifacts, though. Croc's whole other story.
Right, apparently.
Micaiah, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for running us a brief demo of Thrilling Adventures.
Oh, thank you so much for playing. I love playing with good players, and I really appreciate that you guys went for the moves and had some fun. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
As this episode comes out, the Kickstarter that you have going will be in its final days. Yes. Talk a little bit about the Kickstarter. I see that you've already reached your funding goal, which I'm excited. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, call it an inferiority complex or whatever, but I set a really low goal of 250. I'm like, well, maybe a few guys will get it. I don't know. Maybe somebody will pick it up. I don't know. Maybe a couple friends. And so 250, I was like, I think I could do that. Well, come to tonight, and it's almost, I haven't checked, but it's either at or almost at 1,000% funding at 2,500.
Nice.
Just short of 2,500.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for checking. Yeah. It's amazing to me because I've got all these people from all over the world and, they're really excited. I think I've touched on something that people have wanted to do for a while because I'm getting a lot of support and I'm really hoping everyone will have the same super fun experience with this. But yeah, the Kickstarter is going fantastically.
Yeah, and it looks like people come back for the PDF, softcover, or a hardcover, which is great to have those options.
That's right. Oh, and I'll mention, I'm working on the Eccentric Exploits expansion, and I decided I wanted a way to stick to either tell pulp stories in the style of steampunk, Cthulhu horror, or weird science. And the Eccentric Exploits actually introduces 6 new playbooks, including a mad scientist, a mecha man, and a sky captain, as well as source material for the various genres so that you can easily pull in those elements and it can truly be a pulp story of any telling.
Wow. Really, really cool.
Thank you.
So, Micaiah, if our listeners want to follow the rest of your work online, where can they find you?
They can go to the Kickstarter for sure. You should be able to find it if you go to Kickstarter and search Thrilling Adventures.
We'll definitely have a link in the show notes for sure.
Well, I would appreciate that. Yeah, I guess you could definitely go to the links here. But yeah, you should be able to find Thrilling Adventures on Kickstarter. It's live right now for another 13 days.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Micaiah, for coming on and sharing this game with us.
Oh, I am so excited. I really enjoyed talking with you guys and playing with you. Thank you so much.
Fabulous. Thank you as well.
Plus One Forward is a production of the Gauntlet community, Richard Rogers and Rach Shelkey. You can find us at gauntlet-rpg.com or follow us on Twitter at @+1FWD. If you would like to support our show, visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/gauntlet. The games mentioned on this show use the Apocalypse engine, which is a creation of Vincent and Magay Baker. The music for Plus One Forward is from the Savage Aural Hotbed CD Gomi Daiko. The songs used are Gomi Daiko, Metal Version, and Drowning Attitude. You can find more amazing tunes by Savage Aural Hotbed on their website, www.savageauralhotbed.com.
Listeners, we want to let you know that Hearts of Wulin, our PBTA game of wuxia melodrama, is now available as a PDF on DriveThruRPG. Hearts of Wulin emulates films like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon and Shadow, and TV series like The Untamed and Ancient Detective. It is inspired by the Chinese martial arts novels of Jin Yong and Gu Long and their many adaptations. In these tales, romance is as dangerous as a blade. You can buy Hearts of Wulin at the Gauntlet store on DriveThruRPG. You can find more information and resources for it on our Gauntlet blog, on the Gauntlet webpage at gauntlet-rpg.com.